Hello friends, are you pleased to hear my voice, or one quite like it? I've been fighting this war for you every day since we last spoke. Let me tell you how this tends to go. First, picture a man with a reinforced baseball bat slaughtering a crowd of monsters in his driveway. That's all fine and dandy. By my count, it takes about 12 to 16 hours after a culling for another migration pattern to form in the vacuum left by the dead. So I have that long at least to attend to my daily needs. Not quite a 9 to 5, but it's not that far off either. Some days are worse than others. Sometimes they begin an assault in the morning and it's not over until it's dark. There are usually fewer than 100 per day, though that is only because I keep my head down and avoid contact with those elements of the horde that went to the neighbours' houses. The vectoring isn't all that accurate, luckily enough. Still, they'll come over in due time. As I have reported before, slaying a single beast has become easy. It is an act that simultaneously demands and provides therapy, but it is marred by the knowledge that bashing them until they agree to lie down is a far cry from killing them. In the night they crawl away as best they can, not unlike myself. They are being healed, brought back, again and again. We knew this could occur, but this is something else. The aeroplankton they travel hundreds of miles to consume is a wonder drug to them, and as you may have caught on, to me. It is not so magical that smashing their brains to pieces doesn't work. Nonetheless, I feel, or felt, that I should not do so for most of my stay so far. It is still my opinion, controversial as it is, that keeping these zombies in a cycle of death and regeneration is a noble thing. For if they are to be cured, and our nation cured with it, we shall have to maintain the horde, will we not? I make no claim to this nobility, yet I put it to you that the principle behind it is true. They are our old friends and countrymen, in stasis, if you will. Our old civilization is there, in the endless sea of enemies. There is, I know, a way to save them. I have not found it yet, but it literally happened to me, so no amount of voices from the walls will convince me otherwise. Yes, everyone, Madam Director, I can hear you. It is only that I'm not overly interested in conversation at the moment. Or rather, conversation with you is even worse than the insanity of being trapped alone. No offense. So what was I saying? Ah yes, work's been busy. I've been trying to get the wooden walls up to complete my hideaway, in between all the killing. There are often 5 or 10 minute lulls where you can size up a post or get a few nails in the right places. In fact, in the middle of killing sessions is when I feel the most energy. Something in the air, don't you know? I don't hate it, especially as new blood in the driveway means fresh clothes and fresh whatever else they have on them. I have 100 watches, piles of bullets and junk food, neat stacks of leather and denim, and plenty of cold hard cash. Yes, the coins are great for pinging off the walls as a distraction, and sleeping beside a mountain of dollar bills makes me feel valued as a person. If you find it distasteful, I welcome you to come and stop me. The rest of my downtime is spent trying to learn tricks of the trade, as I had always advocated the Vectors do. I've been removing batteries from the aforementioned 100 watches, reading the outdoorsman's guides my predecessors sourced, and making all kinds of neat water filters, bandages, and magical charms to ward off evil. No stone unturned here. One homely task I've taken to is clothing repair. Yes, clothing isn't exactly in short supply. In fact, I have created something of a burnt clothes-based economy here. However, taking an interest in my wardrobe has netted me a rather special look. I was able to source a good stock of leather from the horde, but wearing it in its raw form, that is, long coats and tight jackets, is a great way to constrict yourself into an early grave. Too hot too. So I've had a great time sitting cross-legged on the bedroom floor cutting those coats up. I've taken more reasonable items of clothing and made scratch-proof patches that don't impede the joints. Were you to see me, you would witness a man covered in stripes of all colours, occasionally still with rips peeking out from behind my amateur arts and crafts, and from below my ultramarine blue hard hat hangs increasingly long, scraggly hair, which would be grey were it not so dirty. I look and smell like it's the end of the world, and when I do find the time to wash, I look and smell like a monster that just emerged from the Ohio River. Oh, it's a fine thing that no other vectors have been sent in, a fine thing indeed, for it's most uncivilized in this house. It is only the half-belief that no one will ever hear this that allows me to admit to my barbaric state of affairs. Ho-hum, life goes on, life goes off. So, I was saying I had misgivings about slaughtering the zombies so thoroughly that they would be unable to reassemble themselves. I was saying that it was wrong to kill them. I understand the laughter this must have spurred. I laughed at myself. It was only more recently that I decided to enact a more permanent solution. To kill with certainty. I had to. The daily hordes were growing, with the ranks of one day starting to trickle in and reinforce those freshly arrived on the next. One day there'll be 1,000,000 hungry mouths at my gate. I had two ideas, fire and cement. The latter was a grand ambition to entomb the dead in concrete piles around the HQ, such that a wall of the dead might protect me. It was macabre, especially if those monsters in there still might sup on the magic bacteria and regain consciousness. The only problem was that cement mix is harder to come by than wood, and I've been cutting down all the trees in a 3-block radius to get materials for my stockade. Therefore, fire. It began in the backyard. A few zombies had broken through my fence at the riverside and come stomping down through the garden. I had a shovel handy, so it was no problem to put them down, but once down I wanted them gone. Since I had all the firewood and gas to hand for the barbecue, I decided to try starting a pyre. I knew it wasn't easy to do, but I also had a whole lot of gas to drown any ignition problems. I piled up 5 bodies ready to go, got a decent fire going with plenty of wood, then hesitated. As I said, I wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea of actually destroying these beasts because of what may be trapped within. Then again, I had a job to do, and I had to know what options were at my disposal. I don't know why I'm trying to justify myself here. Do you even care? I dragged those bodies over my fire, and after the clothing burned off, it didn't really do much else. That's the usual story trying to burn these things. Still, everything burns somehow. Everything can melt in one circumstance or another. So all I had to do was pour enough fuel on the fire to get it rivaling the sun. Boom. It was a closer rival than I expected, I can tell you that. This, I gladly report, burns flesh right off the bone. I looked down at the arm which had been pouring the gas, seeing the brilliant fizzling white of my muscles being destroyed. It didn't feel like anything. The blaze immediately crossed my body and had me rolling on the ground. I was alive for a long time, burning and burning. It felt like a dull ache. Your nerves stopped working after a while. It was like my innards were secreting something that was burning off, extending my demise and building the flames ever further. And I am certain I'm onto something here. I've talked about mad science before, but the science you do when you're on fire really is in a league of its own. It must be linked to the aeroplankton. The same hives you, the ISD, made in my body to create them are able to affect other organs and protect themselves with this secretion. A goo that makes the fire burn hotter, but then burn out, leaving organs intact. Why this really matters I will tell you in a moment. First, you are probably asking yourself how I got by with a body melting off the bone. I think you can guess the answer. These days I have a new one, and not the charred, blackened thing that becomes of zombies who you try to burn under ordinary circumstances, re-revived in their moment of death eternal. I'm better than new. The fire reduced me to a pile of, material, but something of a body was there, the top half at least. The organs survive. The hive survives, something along those lines. I woke up 4 days later in the middle of the night. I had clearly been zombified for a time, as I had wandered a few miles off. I recognized it as the area we inserted Vector 4. I was alive, possessed by a single thought. I can use this. I had an idea that wasn't all that justified at the time, yet proved true in the experiment to follow. Thus, we're getting to the reason I decided to make this log. I want to tell you how to burn zombies for good, or how I can do it. After waking up properly, killing the other zombies in the house before they realized I was switching sides, I stole a taxi and got back to HQ. At dawn I was back on a familiar routine, seeing the morning zombies shambling up the street towards the driveway. I quickly gathered what I needed and rushed out to meet them. In preparation, I set 2 large fires in the middle of the road, roaring hot with gas and dry wood. Kept my distance a little better, still feeling an all-over ache that seemed to intensify when the heat of the flames bathed my skin. My body, or some of its residents, wanted me to be careful. Handily I agreed, and perhaps you do too. Now it was time for my shift, and I was very enthusiastic about getting the zombies vectoring on over. I ran around, jumped up and down, and shouted obscenities a long time coming. It felt nice. I got a good crowd foaming at the mouth, arms outstretched, gagging to latch on to my tasty, freshly baked flesh. To avoid putting unnecessary bravado into my profile, I will admit that this was the most terrifying thing. I understand that my job can be reduced down to bait most of the time, but this was something even more reductive. It was big league dumb. But so are zombies, and yes, they happily stepped into my fires in their advance, and because they often scrum together to be the first in line for a bite, they had no trouble setting each other on fire. Yet so far no one can be impressed, for it's only going to burn clothes and hair, and even if it disables them for a while, they'll get back up as a charred monster and carry on. Right? I was banking my whole account on things being different, simply because I had a feeling that they were. Being burned alive gives you various feelings on the topic of immolation, I assure you. Call me an expert. What I saw yesterday morning was the nearest thing we'll get to fireworks in a while. The zombies were burning under their flesh. They were all customers of my aeroplankton production business after all. I knew there was a chance that these microscopic beings were living in there, and that they would react in a similar way to my own stock. Only they didn't have the infrastructure, shall we say, to actually ward off the blaze. This left the zombies in the difficult middle ground of being able to produce enough horrid plankton juice to fuel the fire, but not enough to ultimately smother it out. I think, anyway. I'm trying to explain what I saw, but I guess the reason I'm telling you is that it's your job to figure this out and use it. By God, you'd better be doing something with this, Madam Director. The zombies burned and burned, and it carried on long enough with no extra fuel to actually destroy their insides, destroy their brains. I was running around, surrounded by flaming monsters, with a wide smile on my face. The more zombies that came, the more the fires grew, burning for long enough to give it plenty of opportunities to spread to newcomers, but quick enough to kill the buggers outright before I got too tired of running away. Make no mistake, this process took hours, and any minute I could be the next log on the fire, as it were. But by around 2 in the afternoon, the day's wave of customers were all ash and loose scraps the fire didn't have room for. Not all of them were gone down to their brains. Most, though. Those were zombies, people, that were never going to come back, in all senses of that phrase. I tried it again today, and it worked equally well. I've plenty of fuel to keep this going for the time being, and I have, I suppose, the security of knowing that if I was to be burned terribly, I believe I would recover outlandishly quickly. Yes, my bacterial buddies in here won't sit this one out, always hungry for more action. As am I assure you. What I need you to do is find a way to get this increased flammability trait spread across the whole population. The aeroplankton must be something to do with it. Then bomb them into oblivion, shoot them with space lasers, whatever your pals and the good old US government can do, whatever hand they have left to play. I'll round them up, and then you burn the whole of Knox County. Not that you need me to suggest a plan like that. In fact, all I need to suggest is the opposite. You must know something about how I am able to come back like this. Can't you find a way to cure zombification? I understand special preparations were made on me in advance, but there's so much that this disease, if I should call it that, can do, that I find it impossible to believe that these people can't be gradually brought back around into symbiosis, or wake up from the horrid nightmares they must all be going through, or burn them all. You don't know how to do either. Perhaps I have helped one way or another. Please just get back to me properly on all this. No more one-way conversations or orders or exercises. Just talk to me, someone. Talk to me about all this. Should I keep going? You have to tell me as soon as you find a cure. At least tell me you've heard my idea, please. It's the 21st of October 2008, and this is Vector 8 Maxwell Bravo, signing off. After today, that's 1,100 zombies killed, 150 destroyed. If they can get all the rest of them over here, that'll be 250 million to go. I think I'll ask again next time if they've got the whole world working together on this. Or is it actually just me?